Pile Comic Hour with your hosts, Andrew Glonner,
Chris Ramos.
and tonight we are reviewing Grimm by Stephanie Phillips, published by Boom Studios.
Boom Studios. We've done a few of those, and this is probably number 3 or 4. We like them. They're little indie publishers.
Yeah, and it's nice to kind of revisit Boom Studios because we haven't really did another one since Once and Future. And also we wanted to feature another female writer that is up and coming. As Stephanie Phillips, she's had some history with
some mainstream
with
stuff.
with DC Comics, with a Harley Quinn run, and a few other smaller runs. Along with her own Wonder Woman run called Sensational Wonder Woman, and doing a little fill-in smaller runs here and there. But we thought, hey, let's do something a little horror themed, something a little indie, and bring it all back.
So Grimm, this collection that we read is 15 issues. It's collected in 2024, so it's relatively new as a graphic novel collection.
Yep.
But the Grimm story first started in 2021, 2022?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something like that. So we really actually wanted to read something that was, again, kind of a creator-owned project. And this one was started by Stephanie Phillips and her illustrator, Flaviano.
Yeah.
Both of them made this together.
Right. And so a little bit of like what it is in a nutshell. And I was trying to figure out the best way to sum it up.
Yeah, what's the elevator pitch?
Oh, okay. I got it up from CBR. Grimm follows a reaper named Jessica Harrow, who's tasked with ushering freshly departed souls into the afterlife. After one reaping, her scythe gets stolen, which leads to the discovery of a number of mysteries about her origin. As Jessica and her reaper friends try to unravel these mysteries, they become embroiled in events that could threaten their entire existence.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
The reaper and her reaper friends. So that right away you get the idea. The first 5 pages.
Yeah.
That someone has died in a car accident, and here this girl shows up and says, "I'm going to guide you." And he's like, "Oh, good, I'm not dead." And she goes, "No, you are dead. I'm a reaper."
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love the art. Really, just takes the cake of this book, and really fleshes out this world that Stephanie Phillips is imagining. It's really unique and also kind of really stretches the imagination of what we can do with digital art.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because the art itself is carrying the book at a fast pace. I wouldn't say that the writing is carrying the book at a fast pace. The art is just moving you. So that's kind of cool. Like, I noticed that right away. And I also noticed too that, and I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of books, like, and I think even everyone out there that has read novels or watched movies or read comics or graphic novels or old, they're like, what's the spin, right? Like, here's the main plot line. The main plot line is that people are dying and they're being ushered into hell.
Yep.
And that this is one of the reapers.
Yeah.
But then you're like, what's the spin? What's different? Because that story kind of has been done before.
Sure.
Like,
the guide. Heaven and hell.
Like I'm your guide to the
supernatural.
Afterlife. Yeah. Well, so as the story progresses, I thought they did a good job of trying to make things different, but not like just everything automatically different for the sake of just
right. I almost see Jessica Harrow is kind of like this edgy teen, kind of like maybe high school, like college age. She very much has like that punk attitude,
like the Akira of Reapers.
Yes. Absolutely, that's a good way to put it. And that she cares, but she doesn't. And so her job is to usher souls into the afterlife. And they do a really good job at imagining what this looks like. And they use the primary colors is like red and black, which it can be sometimes like a trope of what that looks like, but I think it really sells the point of what's the world look like that we start out in.
Well, and a lot of the pages, I noticed it was like 3 or 4 panels, then like maybe 3 or 4 panels, and then full page, and then 3 or 4 panels, then full page, then 3 or 4 panels, then full page.
Yes.
So they really, like I said, it moves you through it's easy to absorb because the page just explodes.
Right. Absolutely.
I thought what was cool is just the basic storyline with the Reapers is that you think, okay, well, to be a Reaper, you'd have to have some sort of magic or supernatural power,
right?
Some otherworldly, goddess,
Mm-hmm.
god power. But it was neat when they got to where she was taking him that there were thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of Reapers.
Yes.
And they're all different. They're all like,
yes.
Did you get the idea that they stayed at the age that they were when they died?
Okay. Correct. Or like if they were still French when they died, they were, kept that authenticity. Yeah.
So you kept your personality.
Yes.
Died and then were just randomly chosen to be a Reaper.
Yeah, absolutely.
They didn't really explain
like her companions that she travels with, Marcel, who was from the 1800s, France. And then also there was Eddie, the rock star from the 80s.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know if that was Eddie Van Halen or like Randy Rhoads vibes, but that's what I got.
Just some funky, crazy. He's still dressed exactly like he just rolled out of his concert.
I actually thought those two characters were actually great, like to help Jessica Harrow like through the story, and also like give her somebody to bounce ideas off of, and great dialogue between them. Good character development.
So as we are going through the story too, my question for you is, who is the, like, when you watch a movie or you read a book, it's like, this character is the viewer, like this is the reader. That's you. Mm-hmm. So like, who in this book was like the reader?
Interesting. That's a great question. Eddie seems like he was kind of, he had his own like story that he was going through as well. But he also was
like he had nothing to lose.
So nothing to lose. But you kind of see some of the world through his lens. Because I wouldn't say Marcel. Marcel is also like, he's very guilt driven.
Yeah, and the main character Jessica. I only say this. I mean, it's a hard question to answer, and once you read it, you'll see this.
Yeah,
but I only asked that because I didn't feel like Jessica was our lens. We were just sort of
interesting.
We were sort of watching her stumble through her stuff. But like the questions she had wasn't the same questions the reader would have.
Right.
And sometimes stories do that, like information dump.
Oh, a lot of exposition.
Yeah, where you're like,
explain.
I wonder what that is. And then the character goes, tell me again, what's that in the distance? And then they do this information explanation.
Oh, sure. Like, X-Men's good for that.
Yeah. And you're like, And you're like, all right, I needed that as a reader. I needed that. So like, you're my reader friend.
I would say you're almost like traveling with them.
Oh, yeah.
As the reader, because you could say it's one particular character of the three.
You're like an omniscient
follower. I would say something like that. Or you're like at eye level with them, and you're traveling with them through everything. One point to this book, and it kind of mentioned it in the summary, was that Jessica doesn't know her origins, and until it gets brought up that she can step between both hell and earth, well, the land of the living and humans, she can be seen by humans as well. She doesn't know that till she stumbles into it when her scythe gets taken away. Spoilers. But that's kind of like the premise. So she is going through this book figuring out her origin, which is kind of a unique take on the story.
Yeah. Well, and like everyone that's a Reaper has their own scythe, which is cool.
Right.
Because it's like that's your key to go get these souls. And like they even asked them, where is it? Where'd you put it? They're like, well, I got it right here in my pocket.
Right.
Like they're worried about just sort of misplacing it and being not able to travel. But they do also have sort of this goofiness to all of them. Like they're just sort of like, well, this is our job. It's spooky and weird and scary. And we don't, generally talk to anybody, but it's still our job. And you could tell they have somewhat of friendships a little bit.
Sure.
So their own little gang of three.
Absolutely. And you kind of learn that like her family is also like very high up in, and the ruling and hierarchy of hell. And they have a lot of ties, but nobody's really did a proper job parenting her. And so she's been on her own, or felt like she's been on her own for most of her life. And then as like us, we kind of like feel that sometimes. And I think that made her very relatable. I think that was a very good characteristic.
That's true, because as she was struggling just with her job and her friends, and then like, her past,
Yeah.
and getting some answers to questions only really led to more questions. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, for us as a reader, I think it kept the story moving, because otherwise it
Absolutely.
would have just been
Yeah.
very straightforward. Like,
Mm-hmm. Kind of
you
one
know,
dimensional if you did
yep,
it that way.
hey, I'm a Grim Reaper. I get these people, I bring them down to hell and try to
Right.
guide them
That's what
through.
you're kind of led to believe in like the first two or three pages, like, oh, okay, whatever. And then until it's like you started to add a little twist here and there.
Like, oh, it's a job. It's
Yeah.
sort of like a Beetlejuice thing, where it's
Yeah,
like,
that's a good way to say it.
things go awry.
Right.
And everyone, of course, who was conniving and methodical in life is also conniving in hell.
Yes.
Which is really kind of a funny thing.
Right. Yeah. And I think you did a good job of she has that very rebellious attitude. So we could be she was like you're saying, she's asking questions of the story as well, of like, what are you trying to do? How this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm still figuring out these new powers and what that means to her. That's fun. Yeah. Absolutely. So we kind of see the three of them, Marcel, Eddie, and Jessica, kind of go through trying to find more answers to her past. And then all of a sudden we kind of get to the point where her scythe gets stolen. She tries to recover the scythe and ends up getting taken away. And pretty soon, the land of the dead no longer stays dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody can die.
Yeah. That was kind of one of the side effects too, because while they have a job to do, they also feel like they have quite a bit of downtime. They're just sort of
kind of going
wandering.
in between, right?
So they almost get bored, and then
Because
they start
then
getting
the story kind of
forgetful.
reminds you, oh yes, they're also Grim Reapers, and
Yes.
they have to escort people from the land of the living to the dead. Well, what if that system ever got disrupted?
Grim Reapers need to collect.
Right, because then it's like a fight for power of who rules hell, and then it's also like, oh, what if that system and powers aren't in place? Oh, that's just pure chaos.
And when people die, they don't actually leave.
Yeah,
that was the other thing,
right?
And they weren't like turning into like
Not zombies, but they kind of like snaps in their head of, oh, I can't die.
Yeah.
And there's no rules.
They just stayed with the injuries that killed them.
Mm-hmm.
But they were just sort of there.
Yeah.
Still.
Because a lot of those characters, like, I'm in constant pain or I'm pissed off that I can't go on.
Did you see there was like a moment where like someone was at a diner and he was just like had knives all stuck in him or something? So people were like getting goofy with it too.
Mm-hmm.
And
because I will say, like, this book does have its comedic moments to it. It's a little bit of irony to it.
Yeah, they still wanted to make it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say this is very much like it's horror, but with some action elements to it. And if you can, I think she does a good job of like trying to find like what's the meaning of life or what's life worth living for.
Yeah.
And just trying to kind of have some sort of message around that.
Well, almost like even after death, you still have a possibility of value.
Sure.
Like
Absolutely.
you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's
even
a good point.
the people who are moving on from the place she brought them, like you don't know where they're going or what they're doing. That sort of people in death are helping and supplementing people who are still living.
Yeah.
And it does, I would say the overall theme is still going back to, be a good person when you're alive.
Mm-hmm.
And because they kind of touch on that a lot, like with people's pasts and stuff. It's just always comes back to like, hey, you know what? You needed to take care of your loved ones, and you needed to like pay attention, and things slip by and no one no one really notices that everything's going downhill until it does.
Yes.
And the other thing that I thought was really cool was they kept introducing like, this is Jessica, and then like, oh, here's her boss, and she's a little more powerful than her.
Yeah.
And then here's her boss's boss.
Right. Yeah.
And then, oh, by the way, there's this big guy and another big guy.
Right.
And a
Yeah.
and future.
Well, and
It was
then
like, geez.
well, like when they bring out the end we think is, I think, the more stereotypical Grim Reaper.
Yeah, the
But
end
he,
felt like the Nightmare or Night
yeah,
Christmas
a
sort of
little bit, yeah,
past.
kind of a Nightmare Before Christmas vibe. Very large, muscular, and almost like a Hulkling of sorts. But he's like black and red. And he has like chains from him as well. Kind of, or I guess, and with the analogy like Christmas Carol, like Death from
Yes.
the Christmas Carol. I
Yes.
could kind of see that as maybe like an inspiration they added to it.
He also kind of felt like ancient power.
Yes.
Like this has been one of those demigods
Yeah.
that have been around for
Ever.
a very long time
Mhm.
and doesn't really care about anyone or anything.
No,
It's just
he cares.
balancing.
Yes, balance will
Yeah.
be restored.
Balance the scales.
Your actions have created an imbalance. We have to set things right. And I love the character design behind him, because then when you realize how the imbalance shifts when he leaves the story, everything just broke apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when him and the traditional Grim Reaper, the OG one, when they're both gone, they take each other out. That's when the whole like story starts to like throttle.
Yeah.
And just go 100 miles an hour.
And everything you think that would collapse does.
Yeah.
I also thought he was a really good opposite of Jessica, because she's like super. She's very human like. There's really
Yes,
almost
correct.
nothing about her and Eddie and Marcelo that is not very human.
Right.
Until she gets mad and she like has that skeleton face,
Yeah.
Like that's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, when she gets mad, she has that like red Grim Reaper face that shows up.
And even her friends are like, "Oh, I hate when you do this." Because
it's like when you're hungry and you need a Snickers.
Yeah, it's like it
It's
reminds
exactly like that.
you that they are not of this world.
Right.
They're sort of henchmen of the afterlife.
Yeah. And it was also cool. They had some fun with, what does it mean to be a Grim Reaper? The different scythes that you could have.
Yeah, like do you think about it? Like, do you even care about who you're getting? Like,
yeah,
is that something that goes through people's brains?
Right. And we kind of mentioned, everybody, all these Grim Reapers are from a different point in time that they're plucked in. So they have just a bunch of fun of like, how would they react to different situations? That was really smart. Like the more you think about this book, the more layers there are.
Yeah, like
because they could feel
expand.
very surface level
Mhm.
on the as you're reading it, but then as you like dissect it a little bit, there's way more to it.
Well, I could see where they, like you said, there's so many different Reapers and they're all different personalities.
Yeah.
I could see where it's sort of like a Spider-Man multiverse kind of thing where everyone could get a little spin-off story. I'm sure there's some super exciting people in there that have some great backstory that they could work on. So, all right, we got that's our next spin-off. We got to get her to keep going on this story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although you said there is a volume 2.
Yes, there is.
This is
enough.
15
Yep.
issues.
So this volume collects 1, 2, and 3 of the series. So the first 15 issues, and then volume 4 just dropped at the end of last year, and that collects issues 16 through 20. And okay. So there's more coming to the story.
Kind of added 5 more.
Yeah, I would hope that at least gets to 30. That'd be a nice round number to do.
A good little wrap up. Well, 2 volumes would be.
Yeah, I think especially those Boom Deluxe editions, to have them on the shelf, they're pretty nice.
Yeah, that's true. Boom does do a good job of collecting and printing in something that you know, looks good on your shelf at the same time.
Absolutely. It was also cool. They leaned into the tropes of Las Vegas.
Yes. Yes.
Well, like the most chaotic place that could seen between the living and the dead and the hell is Las Vegas. They lean into that.
They had a lot of like, how can we get back to hell? We got locked out. And she's like, it's right over here.
Yeah, there's they say that gateways to hell. And they each like gatekeeper has like a different role. There's a guardian and different ways to like get in and go through his challenge, and they're all very like extremely difficult. Like they have to pass their own personal tests to get through. So I thought that was super interesting and really kept it exciting, because I think that the themes just really connected.
Yeah.
She had a great vision for this.
Well, it also showed that these Reapers are not, impervious, all powerful.
Sure.
They can still kind of
Absolutely.
get beat up by each other.
Yeah.
And they also have limits. So just because you're a Reaper doesn't mean you are the Grim Reaper.
Sure. There was only one technically, and
Yes.
even he was impervious.
So they're like, okay, just remember, like, you're all helping this cause. It's sort of like Santa's elves. They're still Santa. So you're not gonna rise up.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting as well. Yeah, just seeing how all the different interactions, how she could face through people. Nobody was all knowing in this book, except for maybe the Grim Reaper. And then nobody was impervious to damage or anything like that. Everybody was like,
yeah, they all look like they were suffering at some point.
Yeah, struggling, yeah. Because sometimes, like, Superman doesn't struggle. I mean, Kryptonite, sure, but that's it. Or Batman, he always figures it out. Or Spider-Man, he's always getting back up. Little things like that really make a difference.
Now, there were pages that reminded me of Darren Warren Johnson a little bit. If you like,
I would say like this page here, where he's coming out,
kind of like splashes like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought of some of the pages were like Andrea Sortino that we covered during Gideon Falls. I thought there was some inspiration from that because of the color palette that the color they did, going back to Rico Renzi. And but all of them were very good. Like it definitely took all three of them to really like get this firing on every cylinder and just evoke those emotions and lighting and color.
Well, I thought it was cool. Like even her outfit, Jessica's outfit.
Yeah,
she's got like these red boots on that go up to like her knee with the black laces, and then everything else is like this like form fitted captain's gear, almost like a captain's like double vest or double breast, and then then she had like long red gloves that are fingerless, and so everyone else,
it seemed very practical.
Yeah, but like people were wearing what they wore when they died, and she's in like this really futuristic, cool like Grim Reaper costume. And
yeah,
like well, that's all right. We got to pull our main character out,
Right. Yeah.
So it was like the first, what was it, 4 or 5 issues where she kind of had the you need to accept who you are kind of thing.
Yes.
And then it got into their first big struggle, which was like those hell tattoos that showed up on people's foreheads.
Right. Yeah.
Because after, I mean, there's this ongoing story. The background story is Jessica doesn't really know what she's capable of, who she is, where she came from, why is she,
how big is she to the balance?
Yeah. It's like, that's to the reader. It's like, okay, cool. I see there's some really big questions, but the other question is what's happening right now.
Right.
We're not going to solve your whole childhood immediately, but what's going on like around the corner.
Right. Great big power struggle. Absolutely. I'm trying to make sure, everybody's, keeping rules, keeping the balance. What does that mean? And seeking that out is super huge. They definitely have fun with the environments and just constantly traveling, doing flashbacks to where some of the cast came from and their origins. I thought that was cool. Each character will eventually get one, so I think we will see that in like the later volumes because they did it with Marcel. We didn't get Eddie's quite yet. We spent so much time on Jessica's because that's the big overarching story, but there's a lot of like nuances you could work out.
I mean, I would argue that Eddie was the comedic relief.
Yes.
Sorta.
Right.
Like he was fun. And I think a lot of people will be like, yeah, Eddie.
Yeah.
But he also, you could tell he had like a story of his own. And I really wanted to know that.
Yeah. Wait till next volume.
Yes. Come on now.
I just need to know.
Issue 19 or something.
So. Right. I guess the only thing, maybe just going into it and after reading it, I would say the only thing I wanted is I wanted more. I just wanted to see it keep going. And that's the best feeling you can have.
Yeah.
You're sucked in, you're invested.
They're in for 2 issues and you're like, no, wait, where'd they go? I'm not ready. And they just had these like song lyrics in the background and stuff.
Yeah. I kind of wish some songs I could look up. Some of them are more obvious than others, I think, but that's fine. Gives it like the writer more personality to absolutely. They can
It
connect to
also
it.
touches a little on, like, they almost took the stories of the fates and like
Yeah.
Greek mythology and Roman
Mm-hmm.
mythology and
And
like just
like,
sort of Christian mythology, and just like,
yeah.
hey, let's take all of those, give them a little bit of a spin,
Yes.
so that this feels like, all right, that story, but here's our story.
Yeah, our interpretation of
And
it, because
they
the Fates are drag queens.
yes,
I love it.
and they have the yarn, and they're trying to like cut the yarn, and
Yeah,
like
Fate. Yeah,
the what is it,
the
strings
strings
of
of
fate.
fate.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really funny, but it was also like, interesting to see that they modernized that same story. So,
Right.
you would imagine all this mythology through the years. Let's say these beings have been around since the beginning of
Yeah. How have they
humanity.
evolved? Yeah.
They'd have to change. They'd
Yeah.
have to. They're not going to be waiting at a mountaintop for people to walk up in a pilgrimage.
Sure.
It's like, it's not going to happen.
And I appreciate that their power is not drawn just behind like the people who worship them. I'm
Yes.
glad that we went away from that trope, because that's been done so often. That they kind of did something original.
Yeah, they did. They did a good job there.
Right.
They mentioned Adam and Eve and stuff too.
Yeah, they do a
like,
little bit of that, like what
get-
was original sin and things
Mhm.
like that. Kind of tying that back to different aspects of hell and how we interpret that, just from what we know about it or what we imagine.
I always think of this too, like if this was a story that, like, since it takes place in modern times,
Sure.
you're like, okay, if this was a story that was actually happening,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what is happening was sort of behind the scenes for a while.
Okay.
Like you see these reapers sort of do their thing, but like people may not
Be
understand
aware
what's
of that.
happening, right?
Yeah.
But then when it kind of like, chaos erupts, then the real world starts figuring out like something's dramatically wrong.
Yeah.
And
Not
then,
until like the crest starts. Yeah. Appearing.
they do these stories with like a priest, and they do
Mhm.
stories with like a doctor, and
Sure. And that's a
really
cool
just
pivot.
families.
Yeah.
Like how would they react?
Yeah. How do like normal people reacting to
How,
this?
how does a priest react to what he's seeing as the end of the world?
Oh, right. There's one scene where I think they're at a carnival, or they just, when it just starts happening and there's a band and a concert, they're like at death. There's like a death metal shirts and whatnot. All of it. And it looks like the band like Ghost appears and stuff like that. But people are starting to realize, oh, there's something dramatically happening. People in the
just the
hospital.
song.
Yeah, we're living it. Well, this is like, yeah, that guy in the hospital's guts are out and can't die.
And
Poor
like
guy.
priests are crying, hospitals are overrun. So
yeah,
so it
a
ramped
lot
up.
of implications.
Yeah, it ramped up pretty fast. I also kind of got a little bit of like Sandman vibes,
Of
because they
course.
started introducing these side characters, or like
Yeah.
the Matrix, where they're like, this person oversees this area, or this person has this power.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Remember that Kelly, the guy with the white tiger?
Oh, yeah. I think that was kind of sprung on it. He was one of the guardians of the gates that he did.
Yeah, and he like,
And he's also like a headhunter a little bit too.
he was in charge of man's fear of animals or something, or like,
yeah,
being
right. And then you
being
start,
hunted.
it's not till the very end of the story where Stephanie Phillips introduces the idea, okay, we spent so much time in hell, but what else is there?
Yeah.
What else is there? What other powers could I introduce to kind of flip it on its head just to keep it interesting? Similar to like when Saga was going around, how can we keep it interesting? How can we keep it vibrant?
How many other characters make sense, right?
Right. So that's kind of another way to think of it too. And then you could also like, we kind of hear mentions of Jessica's mother, but it's like an Easter egg at the very end. Yes, that's another. I just thought about it. They do prologue and epilogue.
Oh,
in
that's
the
right.
story.
That's right. I like that. I thought that was good. Each issue.
Yes, each issue. They don't really like. There's some points where they say, "Hey, the real story is just starting," but at least there's points in the book where they do like the epilogue, like, okay, here's what's happening in the main story right now, and here's what's happening over on the other side of the world.
We're gonna wrap on a few
Yeah,
items,
because that's how they kind of
yeah.
introduce Jessica's mom to it.
Yes.
Which is such a smart idea, because then you're not spending a ton of time during the main story doing it as well.
Yeah,
you can focus
and then
on it.
you're not like, how did she get here?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Right. Or cutscene.
Yeah, right. Got rid of that back and forth through the issue.
Right. It flows so much better. and you can set up the next issue so flawlessly. So when it's collected edition like this, it just flows so
Yeah.
seamlessly.
Quick.
And the pacing's great. Yeah, I can't stress that enough. I mean, it was such a great fresh read, palate cleanser.
Yeah.
And to read just from all the superhero stuff that we've been doing, I was like, oh, this feels good.
Yeah, and if you're looking for, so that's kind of, again, like we said at the beginning, we like Boom, and we just wanted to, touch on maybe some image and things too, but like same idea, or Dark Horse, if you need a palette cleanser just for the weekend, usually some of these you can read pretty nice in just a few days, right?
Right.
So you're not losing anything as far as like, just because you're caught up in the story, it's not like you're losing track of the story. It's
Right.
just the pacing is right, and that's how it should be. It was really just a fun, sort of exhilarating read. Is you don't need to always have this huge, long,
No,
drawn out, I got to look up this stuff.
exactly. I almost really want to see this as an animated series.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. I think it would just flow off the page and very just back and forth, kind of comedic, but yet just keeps going. I don't know if I would want it live action. It'd be fine. But I think there's so much potential in the animated space. I'm like, I could watch this like a half an hour, like kind of cartoon format.
I would do that. I was
Yeah.
just zooming in on, like, they have this shot of the collected Reapers,
Yeah.
and some of them look like butchers. Some of them are like motorcycle riders. One guy's an astronaut.
Yeah.
Looks
Really
like,
let her imagination just run wild with it too.
this looks like some sort of Apache tribe guy.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's also, wouldn't you say that's one of the advantages with digital, or they could kind of get more detail with that?
I think the number one advantage with digital is that it's just faster,
Sure.
and that
That makes
people
sense.
see it as, if I want to tell this story and pound out 12 or 15
Sure.
issues
Yeah.
in a year,
Right.
that's how you could stay on track. I think it really goes fast.
Okay.
But the detail part of it, yeah, I mean, you don't lose it because you have to like scan it. But
Right.
also, I noticed with digital, they
Yeah.
don't really get into an incredible amount of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think Arthur Adams would have been like a digital guy.
Oh no. Yeah, correct. Yeah. I think about it, in some of these scenes where it's rainy out and she's talking to a new character, she's having this breakdown, and Stephanie Phillips and the artist could really kind of break down the mood and kind of say, here, this is kind of what's happening, add the rain into it, and just not lose that detail.
Yeah, and they still have it where so we both read this on our tablets, but it's at the same time, it wasn't too flashy bright. It was controlled.
Yes.
The colors were really well done.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I would recommend reading, having new readers do it. You don't have to know anything going into this. You can just pick it up.
True. Nothing.
Yeah. No continuity there. And I think especially for female writers to just kind of to check out what's going on in the industry and seeing what's really getting pumped out. What was it in the beginning? This was one of 2022's biggest hits with over 100,000 units sold. That is such an accomplishment to like stamp that. You're like, yeah. I did that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And seeing like what the potential of comics can do.
And, to kind of put that in perspective, some of the other top sellers for Boom, we were looking up like Berserker and Magic and the Power Rangers one. And like, those were,
Something is Killing the Children.
Yep. They were big, but they were only like 150,000.
Yeah.
Sold. So, I mean,
but still can kind of like stand up with some of the big boys.
Like you're close with those. And that's to say that the Power Rangers came out with a comic and you're really close to that with a new original comic with no background story
in 2025.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to do.
Yeah, right. Any last closing thoughts?
I would say, we're going to try to pepper these in every once in a while, because even to us as, long time readers and very avid readers, it's really nice to jump into something and just look at like what's different.
Right.
Why is this popular? What's knew about it, and to be just really kind of surprised about it. It was nice.
Yeah, such a fun read. Great pacing, phenomenal art, and great covers. I would love to have a cover
Yes,
on the show.
Covers are great. Yes.
Yes. They're very cinematic and thought provoking, and I love it. So yeah, we definitely recommend checking out Grimm by Stephanie Phillips, published by Boom Studios. This is another great episode of Bam Pow Comic Hour with your host Andrew Garner
And Chris Ramos.
signing off.
Goodbye.